right, Jordan. Thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're the first one in the new podcast studio, so congrats.
It's great. I love the decor.
We're tweaking it out. We're trying to get it dialed in, but man, you've got some stories. So now we've already talked about a lot of it, and I'm glad that you can share more here while we're on air. I started this book. I didn't really get too much into it because, like I mentioned to you earlier, I want to hear from you first. You know, I can't stand doing an episode where I already know the whole story.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, where do you want to start? I mean, this was huge, and this is crazy from the summary that I read about it.
Yeah.
It was on, I've looked it up online. It was on the news. What got you? Well, tell me a little bit about yourself first. You know.
My name's Jordan, and I really like rowing.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's really like where this started. Like I grew up in, so I was born in Mobile, Alabama, pretty close to the water, but I never lived there. I mean, just for a few weeks before my family moved to Ireland and then England. My dad died when I was 3. And then we moved to Las Cruces, New Mexico. So like in these formative early years of my life, I was, the closest water to me was the muddy Rio Grande, which has its own beauty.
Yeah.
But, I think it was something that for whatever reason, my grandfather, who lived in Las Cruces as well, he always had like ships, like in pictures of ships like this one you got here. And so that was something that was always on my mind when I go visit family in Alabama, like getting on the beach, getting in the water. My mom grew up there. So like seafood was always something that like, even in the desert, was really present. I lived briefly in Washington, when I was like middle school years, and then moved back to Albuquerque. But at the moment in Washington, I really just like fell in love with the place. And through high school, didn't have any boating options in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
But I swam. And so it was just something that I was always drawn to. And when I moved up to university in Washington, a little place called University of Puget Sound, had the option of swimming, getting on the swim team there. But then I saw rowing, and I was like, I really hated the chlorine. Like that.
Kids, I swam in high school.
Yeah, and I was like, I love swimming. Swimming feels great.
Yeah,
like,
it's the best thing for you.
Exactly, and I think that like when I finish like a swimming workout, like that feels like the best workout. Like the end of that feels so wonderful. But the rest of that I wasn't really into.
Yeah.
And then I saw the rowing team advertised, and like the moment I picked up an oar, I was like, this felt like my sport.
Hell yeah,
I loved it. Loved racing, and we were a small school. We punched above our weight. We won our local division, and we go down to the West Coast and race against the bigger California crews, and we'd medal down there too. And I just like every like mental, physical, and emotional, like everything about rowing just made me feel alive.
Yeah.
And so the into 4 years at university, the idea of like that going away was like a kind of a big loss. And there's not like there is rowing after university, but it's either you're going to do a club level or you're going to try and go
Olympics.
Yeah. And there's not really a lot of that in between. So, I was good enough to kind of entertain the idea of like, let's see if I got what it takes to get to this level of like an Olympic level. And I moved up to Seattle from Tacoma, where the university was. And started on that training path. One of the guys that I'd rowed with at university had been, was training up there at a little place called Lake Washington Rowing Club.
Okay.
And started to learn how to scull. So I guess that's a little bit of an explanation.
Yeah.
Rowing comes in 2 types. Either you sweep, which is 1 big oar per person, or sculling.
Just 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I started to learn how to scull, because that's not something like, if you learn in Europe, you're probably going to learn how to scull first, but that's just not the way they do it over in the States. And so you kind of had to learn how to scull, because that kind of that makes you a much better rower. Because if you're in an 8-person boat and the boat is not rowing well, it's pretty easy to blame somebody else.
Yeah.
There's like 8 other options. But like when you're in a single scull, like that boat is the coach. It's telling you.
We have a lot of rowing here off of Wrightsville, and I hear them. And when we go out fishing in the morning, I can hear them, and they're screaming.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a sport that you do a race and you go till you vomit. Like that's how it's done.
Yeah.
Like you bring it all. Like you look at the like that last 10 strokes, and then immediately after, when the Olympic cycle comes around, and which is the only time that it's really on TV, and you see like that right when they cross the finish line, and like what happens to their bodies, how they're holding it together. Like it's a like a 6-minute meditation, and you finish that, and you just absolutely spent. I've heard it described as like fitting a 90-minute soccer game into 6 minutes.
Damn. So you graduated, and there's not really much. I was gonna say, what can you do with rowing?
Well, yeah. So I was here training, and things were going along pretty well. And I saw this poster advertising this rowing race across the ocean. And it's like such a path, it was a daunting path to me to imagine this, like training for the next 10 years to try and get, onto an Olympic boat. And again, I like trying a bunch of different things. And I looked at this, and I just, I was captivated and inspired by the idea. And I was like, well, this is rowing, but I can try something different. If I just do this one path, then I'm just going to, I'm training for like a 2-kilometer race, and just like same thing over and over and over again. Whereas this, like going from a point A to a point B, was like this, just this feeling that felt right. And so I asked my buddy Greg that I was training with, and he was like, no, that's a terrible idea. And then I called on my buddy Brad, who was still at school. And I remember, thinking about this, like being really kind of building up the question, and adding a little bit of gravitas to it. And I was like, Brad, if I rowed across the ocean, would you row with me? Like my buddy Brad, like he's the guy, he's got kind of crazy and zany. Like if anybody was going to say yes, it was going to be Brad.
Yeah.
And he was like, maybe. He's like, send me everything you got. Let's meet up in 10 days. And 10 days later, I went back down to my old school, and he was into it. And so we spent the whole day like planning, figuring this out. And then I called up Greg. I was like, well, we got a team now. so
you got Brad and Greg, and that's all you needed?
Well, no, we needed one more. And so reached out to my buddy Dylan, who was the same year as Brad. And like Dylan, it's like, so, Brad, Greg and we could all like pass for brothers. We're all between like 6'2" and 6'5". And Dylan is, he's like 5'11" and just built, stockier, and but also like everything about Dylan is just got this practical, like just workingest beefcake about him.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know, there was just something about like his, he just is this really he was such a solid oarsman, and just kind of round out, I think, what was Greg had a lot of practicality to him, but I think, Brad and I were a little bit more dreamer-like. And so having that balance, and we got together.
Sounds like an awesome crew.
Yeah, it was a great crew. Wasn't like we didn't have problems though.
Yes. I mean, you have to. I've spoken to quite a few people who have done trips like this. Trust me. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And so I think really what we had going for us were two things: is that we were all taught how to row by the same guy.
Okay.
And we all came from this, like, 4 years of rowing at this school. So we had this structure, we had this, like the culture of that crew. And then we all lived together, in this house that I still live in Seattle. And I think all of that came together. It wasn't like we were working particularly efficiently because we were all in our early 20s, but because we could throw so much time at it, and I think we knew what we wanted to do. We knew how much we didn't know. And when we like reached out to all of these people that we need to help with, like Emerald Harbor Marine and Starpath Navigation, all of these people, asking for mentorships, essentially, we came with like we were humble about it. We're like, we want to do this. This is what we know. This is what we don't know. The vast majority of this is like what we don't know.
Yeah.
But I think coming to them was, we came at it in a way that they were very willing to help. Like they saw that it was like a really good faith effort, and we weren't going to pretend what we didn't know. And then they saw us like in the boatyard. They didn't see us at 2 a.m, but they knew that we were there.
Yeah, grinding away.
Yeah, totally. And like, and some of the times, like we'd go and like work till 2 a.m, and then next day, like, Dan or Larry'd show up and be like, "That's wrong." Like, well, got to undo it and do it again.
Yeah.
Better we do it out here.
I think what I read was it 2 years later that
It took 18 months.
18 months.
18 months to prepare. And so, this one moment, as getting ready for something like this, it was the day that the food was getting packed, which ended up being its own drama. But I was working on the boat and the other guys were packing, and like for whatever reason, I was able to finish my punch list.
Yeah.
At a reasonable time at happy hour. So I went to go, grab a cocktail and a burger.
Yeah.
And it's in this part of Seattle called Ballard, which is this, it's kind of the old Scandinavian district. It's where, the deadliest catch boats are kept. There's just some salty people there, and you don't know like who you're sitting next to. And it's like, we've been doing this whole thing. We've been talking about it to everybody.
A lot of people know.
And I just want to like be alone with my thoughts. Sit next to this guy. He's got, just a scraggly beard and long hair, and he's got his little, cocktail with just something brown and straight.
Yeah.
and he's like, so what do you do? It's like, he's just like, I have to like, maybe this guy's a millionaire. Who knows? So let's just go for it. He's like, well, went into the spiel, and he just doesn't even look at me. He just kind of like stares at the bottles behind the bar. And he goes, well, it's all about how you recover from your first big fuck up.
That's what he said.
And so throughout this process, because I think of our approach on things, people wanted to come out and just give us all of this information. And I think anybody who's starting out in something, like all of the advice that is just volunteered.
Yeah.
And so much of it is just bullshit.
Yeah,
and so much of like what people are bringing, people bring their own baggage to whatever's going on. But that doesn't mean that sometimes a random nugget doesn't fall from above.
That's right.
And I heard that, and I was like, I heard that.
Yeah.
I heard that deep in my soul. And so
that is great.
Yeah. Which, I mean, like, I tell that every single time.
What a legend.
Yeah, totally. I wish I knew who this guy was.
I was going to say, do we have his number?
Yeah. Oh, what other eggs of knowledge is he going to crack?
Yeah. You should freaking, quote that somewhere.
Totally.
That's awesome, man. I love that.
So we, let's see, we had a few more weeks of getting ready, and we did like these little shakedown cruises. And then we finally made our way to New York.
I was going to say, so this was all in Seattle.
Yeah, this is all in Seattle. And then the race was New York to England.
And then, so just towed the boat across?
Yeah, we had a guy, a boat moving guy, and we shipped it on a trailer.
Do you mind telling us about the boat real quick?
Yeah, so it's a Woodvale 4, which is now like a really old boat. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if there's any more of them that are left. 29 feet long. The rudder adds another foot. It's got 2 cabins on either end that create it that are sealed up so it can be self-righting. And as we get into later, that doesn't always work.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's designed to be self-righting, and it's really. We brought it to. We had these 2 like really wonderful old coaches, Lake Washington. Frank and Bill, and like between the 2 of them, they had maybe like over 100 years experience rowing. And you look at the boat out of the water, and it kind of looks like a Viking longship had a baby with a V2 rocket, and it just has like a futuristic thing. And I think we were really like into this idea of this being like this really technological marvel, which it is not.
Well, it could have. What year was this?
Well, this is 2000. It would have been built in like 2004.
Okay.
But it's Frank looking at the boat, and he's like, oh, it's just a longboat beneath the water line. It's like just got classical lines. Like it's not like super futuristic. And I think the hulls have changed. I haven't really kept up with the mod. I hadn't kept my finger on the pulse the last 10 years. So I know that like the shapes have changed, and I'm sure they're better. They seem like they're doing better times. As you would imagine any sport to continue to develop.
Yep.
But, just very classic lines beneath the water. And that was when they were telling us, they were like, well, your oars should probably be wood. Like coming from like a racing background and like carbon on top of carbon on top of carbon. And, learning about like how materials work, and the difference between like carbon and wood is that like wood is tough. Like you can hit wood with a hammer and it dents. If you hit carbon with a hammer, it can
Crap.
it can crap.
Yeah.
And so our oars ended up being this mixture, having just like a solid ash core
Huh.
wrapped in, I think, fiberglass.
I was just gonna say fiberglass, I would think.
Yeah, and they're just like they were super solid, and they were actually, because they were ash, they had a lot of like flexibility and snap to them as well.
Yeah.
Um,
So fiberglass should be lighter than wood.
yeah, well, but it was fiberglass with that wood core, so they were heavy, but it was still like well balanced.
Yeah.
And they felt really solid. And so we only, on that first row, we didn't break any oars at all. We had 2 extra oars, never even unstrapped.
Only 2 extra oars.
Yeah,
Did you do you guys have solar, I'm assuming?
yeah. Everything was everything was, we had a water maker, our navigation system, GPS, VHF radio, and then we had an active radar reflector at that time.
EHRB.
Had the EPIRB on this one. It was an ACR one. But it was all pretty basic.
Yeah.
The water maker, that was our main power consumption. And that was the main thing, is just, stay hydrated. And so we left, well, when we got to New York, it was a race. They were racing against 4 teams 3 other teams from England. There was like room for 14 teams when we signed up. We heard that 7 teams signed up and 4 teams made it to the starting line.
Oh, wow.
And so I think that was another, I guess, kind of an interesting life lesson as well. Like, because I think one of the reasons I was attracted to this project was all of the things that I knew it was going to teach me. And I think one of those things is like, sometimes just getting the start line is one of the biggest victories. Like showing up the start line ready. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment that I think that when I think of, talking to people about, whatever thing they're doing and other people's accomplishments,
Showing up.
well, yeah, just showing up and just being like, I think it's important to recognize that getting to that point and being ready is a victory, and that recognizing that, I think, allows you to take the next step into like, okay, now we're doing the thing, but like recognizing this is where the work happened.
Yeah.
And when we were lined up against all these boats in this muddy boatyard in Jersey City, man, we were looking at everybody else's boat and just felt very prepared.
Okay, good. I was worried what you were about to say.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the 4 of us, nobody like looked at another person's boat and was like, oh, we really want to row on that one. And I think another big part of that is that where we approach this, so we were rowing against guys that were tougher than us. They had like 2 teams from the British Army and a team of British police officers. Like, they had way more life experience. They'd done much harder things, but we really geeked out on the rowing positions and the rowing geometry.
Okay.
And so like, this was a rowboat, and we weren't going to it didn't need just oars, just riggers, or just a seat. It's like, we wanted that set up specifically to move this kind of boat. And this kind of boat requires a different kind of stroke. It's heavier, and a heavier stroke is going to be, it's going to be rounder, as opposed to like really long and lean, like in a skinny boat on flat water. This is designed to row on rough things. Mm-hmm. And so you have a different stroke. You don't need, full compression, because you have these sliding seats. And so when people look at rowing, they think of a lot of arms, but the stroke is, it's mostly legs, because you have the sliding seat. We worked with these folks at another guy that had he was an alumni from our school, but from like 30, 40 years earlier, who makes these beautiful boats called Skid Harbor Boat Works. And we went to this boat show, and we had all this prototype equipment that was just built out of like wood, and had all this flat water equipment on it. And we were hoping to meet somebody who was going to help us like design this stuff. And that's exactly what happened. He shows up and he's like, hey, I got these, I think I have the solution for your seats. And this beautiful seat that was completely silent. So it had like 8 rollerblade wheels, like here, 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 and here, and went on a channel. And so if you've rowed on the flat water boats, you can hear the sliding seat. And that's fine for like an hour or 2.
You're driving nuts.
Oh yeah. And it's like, and you get in salt water, and like, as you're well aware, it gets nastier and nastier. So those things just start to really gum up and get super loud, and you're just putting a lot of force on them. And then these seats were just like, they were silent the whole way across.
Yeah.
So we had these like buttery seats. We had the right geometry. So when we started racing against these guys, we'd work in the boatyard all day, like the 2 weeks prior. Everybody's getting all their last minute stuff ready. And then we'd go to the yacht club, and everybody be eating and drinking and, cracking wise.
You're not like resting up big time to leave.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I mean, it's also that, like egos are being thrown around. And so they're like, well, like, I forget who said they wanted to do like a race to the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. Like, we'll start this with a sprint.
Oh, screw that.
Well, no. And so we were like, fuck it, let's go.
Whatever.
Yeah. So
I'm going to pace myself a slow start.
So we let like the cannon goes off at the Statue of Liberty, and we just get after it. And we managed to put like about a half-mile boat length on everybody. And a big part of that was that we were all, it was a little bit even for the first, because to do 6 miles in this boat is probably, could be anywhere from like 45 minutes to an hour to 2 hours.
Okay.
We had some pretty decent weather. So it was like, I think maybe 90 minutes, but.
Are you going with the tide or?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
It was so long ago, but we hit that, there was this ship that was at anchor. And so, Greg guided us right to, the downwind side. And so it was just flat calm, and we hit that, and we just like leapt ahead of everybody. And then we just kept building on that lead until we hit the bridge. And a few miles after that, I think we saw one of the boats like up on top of a wave. It was the last time we saw him.
No way. So you just were gone after that.
Yeah. And so we started.
We had to give footage of all this when you guys first.
Well, I have a lot of footage about it. So we had about 90 hours on that trip. And we're working on a documentary about that involves that trip, the second one, and these Mississippi rows afterwards, and kind of bringing all of that together, as well as a boat funeral, which that's the final part of the story.
Yeah. We'll talk about that. Oh, damn. So you guys got a damn good start, and you never saw these boats again.
Yeah.
These guys, you guys were the only ones from the U.S. that were competing.
Yeah.
What was the age group? Were we all about the same age?
It was probably like late 20s through probably mid 40s.
Okay.
And I think it's like, and that's when it comes to endurance stuff. I mean, there's a lot of people that are in their, late 40s, early 50s that are just absolute units.
Tanks, yeah.
Yeah. You can pace yourself better. And we did a lot of like open water racing the year prior. And Greg and I would come from this sprinting background, and these guys that, like might have like a little paunch on them and stuff like this. And like, we're doing these races that are, over 15 miles plus. And these guys were just like, wiping the walls with us.
Yeah.
And it's a really humbling thing. And it's just kind of neat that like, rowing is a sport that you can do a long, long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we hit that, it was cool. Like the last thing we saw from the land, was some state park's birthday. I think Liberty Landing. It had been like state park for like 30 years at that point. And they shot up these fireworks. So it was dark, and we were, just heading to England in the rowboat. And in the distance, we could see these fireworks pop up, and just barely the tops of the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. And then the next day, it's like, that's it. We are out to sea.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was, figuring out just how seasick I could get. So me and my buddy Brad, we were on the shift that threw up a lot.
Yeah.
And so Dylan and Greg were doing great. And they, then Brad and I would get on, and it was just like one of us would puke and then the other one would puke. And
seasickness is no joke. People.
Oh no,
you can die.
Yeah. Well, especially it's really hard to get over it. Cause right now, like if I get seasick, if I can like take a nap, then I get over it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But with this, you're rowing 2 hours on, 2 hours off. And so you got to be able to drink water. You got to be able to eat, because you're the motor of that boat. And so just that extends the amount of time that it takes to get over being seasick.
That's right. Yeah.
And so like now, like the first 12 hours when I'm on the water, for the most part, I'm going to be fine. And then I start to feel seasick, I vomit once. Then if I can take a good nap, then I'm good. And then I'm pretty solid after that. But if there's long stretches of time on land, then I have to like reset myself. But, when I was gone for that 6-month period, I was seasick that first time around. For like the first time around, the first 2 times we left shore. And then after that, I was fine.
Yeah.
And it's just depends on who.
It was a mind game.
Yeah, well, it's a mind game. I think it's like everybody's a little bit different. I think there's like 10% of people. This is just BS math, but like in my experience, it's like 10% of people can't get over it. 10% of people don't get it. And then everybody else is somewhere in between. And then there's factors like, I don't know, did you have a big greasy meal before you came out?
Yeah.
Like, did you drink the night before?
Yeah.
Like all of these other little factors. I think the other part is like, when did the weather hit? Because if it's easy rolling, for a few days, your body has a chance to get in the rhythm. But if you go out, like on this other trip I did, we went straight out into the Bay of Biscay after leaving Brittany, and everybody, like 12 hours later, the only people who weren't puking was the captain and the cook.
Yeah. If I get a little nauseous, I just got to keep doing something.
Yeah,
The second I
totally.
sit down, done.
I just got to puke as fast as I can.
Or that, yeah.
Yeah, like I just want to get it out of my system. I got to get the land demons out.
So once you guys got, let's say, the first 24 hours, how are you guys feeling? I mean, how was things going?
I felt horrible.
Okay.
But then by day 3, it was over, and it was like flat calm. And we're like, maybe we made about better part of 200 miles. I'm just thinking to myself, like, we got like 3,000 miles to go. And it was just dead calm. It was like 95 degrees. It's like it's middle of June, in just leaving New York, and
No breeze.
Yeah, no breeze, and just dead calm, like
know
the kind of calm where you look down and it's like you can see your reflection. And then I start hearing like water, like moving water, and it's not the oars. It's just like, this is a lot of water moving, and I can hear it, and it's in the distance, and it's looking around, it's dead calm, and like there's no ships. And I stand up, look towards the bow, look in the horizon, and I see this like low wall of white water coming towards us. And I like called to Greg, and I called the other 2 guys out, and we're watching this. Can't even like wrap our minds around like what's going on, but there's like a low wall of white water coming our direction. And then suddenly we see it, and it's dolphins. It's like thousands of dolphins.
To say row wave or something.
Yeah, and this was a super pod, which is something that I didn't know existed. And we're 3 days into this, and this is the most intense wildlife experience all of us had. I mean, they were as close as I am to you. You could hear them talking. It was beautiful. I mean, everybody was like in tears afterwards. It was really emotional. But these things just kind of hauled ass.
Yep.
And I was like, well, we're going to keep growing to England.
That's so cool, man.
And then we got an email, because we had a satellite phone, so you couldn't escape email even in 2006 on a rowboat in the North Atlantic.
Wow.
But it's from our navigator, this guy, David Birch. And he was like, good job, boys, but time to batten down the hatches. You might want to make some water. There's a hurricane that is forming, and was formed, and it's making its way. It almost died over land when it crossed from the Gulf back out to the eastern seaboard.
Okay.
But now it's in the Gulf Stream, and it's picking up heat, and it's picking up moisture, and so it's picking up speed, and it's heading your way.
Yeah. They usually turn and hit the Azores sometimes like that.
Yeah. And so we were 2 days later, we were in the middle. We had our sea anchor out, which is this parachute out, sits in the water and holding the bow of the boat, while the 4 of us were, I mean, really in a cabin not much bigger than this.
I was going to question with the sea anchor. That's allowed to be used.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's just, parachute that sits in the water.
So there's no, well, I mean, this could just be quick about it. Was there specific rules that you guys had to follow?
Yeah. So they had a whole rule book of stuff that you had to, like, this is the equipment you had to have, the training you had to have, a lot of the regulations of what the equipment had to be.
Yeah, we don't need to get too specific.
Yeah.
I was just curious. Yes. When you said sea anchor, I was.
But we had, the cool thing was that it was up to us to design the rowing system.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that because we approached the rowing as like, you can't overpower a boat like that. Mm-hmm. But what you could do is you can make the rowing as comfortable as possible. And the more time you could spend rowing, that was going to be, that's where you're going to get your speed from, was just like being comfortable in that seat. We made those seats the most comfortable part of the boat.
So you guys get this email.
Yeah.
This is you said your coach?
He kind of became our de facto coach. He was our navigator.
So he's tracking you guys.
Yeah. He's back in this neighborhood of Ballard, and he's awesome.
Yeah.
He's this eccentric guy, and it's Star Path navigation. And first time we walked in, it's like he teaches all these classes. And he he works with barometers, and you walk in and there's like all of this old navigation equipment then all of this future navigation equipment.
I love that.
These boxes all over the place. And him and his son worked, and his son played in a rock band. He had had a bunch of tattoos, and he did all of his PDF work to make books. So there's all these books that are hanging around there. Like, they have a coffee tree that they were growing, and they would roast their own coffee. And then this little cardboard sign that was hanging down and said, "Please excuse our mess. We'll be done in," like, the sign's still up today. So it was like, well, I walked in 2025, and then it was like, "We'll be done in," and it had already been like crossed out 2006, 2008. So like, it's just become this long-standing joke.
That's funny.
So yeah, he told us that this was coming, and we got everything ready. The rain came, then the wind came. And we spent 18 hours in the back of this little cabin, and it just sounded like
18 hours?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And it sounded like if you just close your eyes and you just crumple up a plastic bag, like, that was the sound of the rain on the fiberglass.
So you got 4 of you in this. How big was the camp?
8 by 5 feet.
8 by 5. Okay. So could you imagine?
Yeah. I mean, it's not much bigger than this table. So, I mean, just like, you're down to your skivvies, and you're sweating, and you're just touching, and it's just gross. And like, the condensation is rolling down the side of the fiberglass on the inside of the cabin. But like, everything worked the way it should.
Yeah, good.
And then we got out, and like, that was this moment where we got out of the cabin ready to row again. And it was like rowing this ocean that I imagined. Because like, so much rowing in the ocean is like pretty like calm days, and not something that you would, not like a picture like the one you got there. Like, that's, like, that's some big stormy weather. Like, most of the days are just, average. But this was after this. When it hit us, it wasn't quite a hurricane. It was 65 with gusts up to 80. So it was like still a tropical storm. But the waves were like, 20 to 25 feet, but they were like gentle.
Long swell period.
Yeah. And so we would just be up on like the top of this little blue hill, and then down in this little blue valley, and we could like make like beautiful progress over it. It just everything felt big.
That's wild. So you had no issues at all during that.
I mean, well, it was, yeah. I mean, because it was like the wind had died. It was just like things hadn't really settled down yet, but it was like the boat was still fine, moving along.
That's a really cool experience.
Oh yeah,
how many people get to see that?
Yeah,
you always get out of the bay.
Well, I think this is what has kept me coming back to rowing, and I think ocean rowing is the intimacy with the water. Is when you're going that slow and you're that close, like, you get to see the tiny little bubbles on top of the water, like the tiny little animals, and you're going slow enough that you really have the time
Bioluminescence
to see it. Yeah. During the bioluminescence, what that looks like with oars is it looks like giant matches striking in a green flame.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
like it's a trip in this mental, physical, and emotional way.
Yeah.
And I think that there's like 2 types of people out there. Either you go out to sea and you just see a bunch of blue, or you go out to sea and you just see everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on both of the trips that I've been out there, I've been there with like very smart, curious people. And so who felt like they just kind of saw a little bit of everything out there. And that,
curious is a good word, because I know how I see myself.
Yeah.
I'm always, some people don't, not even looking. Yeah. I'm always looking, you never know what you're going to see pop out,
Not at all. So on day 16, we made some really good progress. At this point, we built up like a 200-mile lead. And early in the morning, my buddy Brad, we just getting ready to go out on our shift, and he's like, "Hey man, I need to talk to you about the food." It's like in the middle of the ocean. That's like the last thing you want to hear.
Yeah.
And then that voice in the back of my head was like, "It's all about how you recover from your first big fuck up." And I was like, "Let's go."
Oh my God, that's great.
So
I love that.
Yeah. And Brad and Greg, for whatever reason, just like didn't get along. I mean, now they're good buddies, and they both got into like long distance running together. But like, as we were getting ready, they were just at loggerheads. And like, Brad ended up being in charge of the food. At the time, he wasn't like the most handy in the boatyard. I think the irony being that since then he's become probably one of the most handy out of all of us.
Okay.
But he's a very good organizer, and so we just gave him the food.
So
Yeah.
Brad's job was to manage the food
Well,
situation.
yeah, and that's a massive job to
Hell
think about
yeah.
the requirements of food on a rowboat for months.
So was he in charge of, even distributing the weight with all that?
Yeah, I mean, it was that the distributing the weight, like, but it was something that we were all kind of a little bit more aware of because we needed more people to help load. But in terms of organizing what was going to be on the boat, there were so many different jobs that everybody had to do. So we didn't have enough. We didn't have enough bandwidth to be able to put people in all of these different things. And we were also in our early 20s.
Well, also to feed 4 big men while you're working out all day long. That's,
Well,
I mean, what would you guys eat?
And all the requirements of that food is that it has to be able to keep for that long.
That's right too. Yeah.
So there's, we had 200 pounds of cheese and butter.
Cheese and butter.
Polenta, and we had some oats. We had some like egg supplements. We had, it wasn't a whole lot of variety. We had some little vitamin packets, and then we took a few boil in the bag meals as well. And Brad did the calculations. We loaded up. We went on the row, and then he saw how quickly we were eating through stuff. And thank God he told us then. And that was it's one of the things that I think about in hindsight, like just how, I mean, yeah, it was a big mess up, but how he owned that mistake.
Yeah.
It was one of like the MVP moments of that experience.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a mess up in anything that big, especially if you're doing something for the first time and you're young and you don't have those levels of experience. And when you get into something that's like, I got one of my ocean row buddies, he works for Boeing, and, he's like, regulations are written in blood.
Yeah.
And so going back to what we were talking earlier about, when you go through all of those little regulation things, like this was pretty cowboy. We were, this race was being organized by a bunch of British people leaving from New York, and we were out here in Seattle.
Yeah.
And so we were doing a lot of this stuff, like making our best guess with what we had. And so like, yeah, of course there was going to be a mess up. But the way that he owned this,
that's what I was about to say, because it takes ball. It's not ball. Yeah, I guess so. I would call it that, to say, hey guys, I fucked up.
Yeah, totally.
And it's so important. And if you don't say anything and you realize it, that's going to make it, you guys are going to kick his ass later on down the road. Why the fuck didn't you say it?
It would totally. And so, I mean, he owned it. And so it was, and it was a lot of silence, but we had this, I don't know, like thinking of how fate works with something like this. He told us that in the morning, and then our goal had been to find the Gulf Stream, and we just pretty much rode in silence the whole day, and didn't eat anything. And then before the sun went down, we were in this current 5 knots in the right direction, and we just tore apart the boat. And we counted every single thing, and then we categorized it all, and we were making really good time. So we were like, okay, this is what we can do. And then that became the drama of like, we would row and then we'd reevaluate. And by the halfway point, we were kicking ass. There was a record of 55 days and we were on point for that. And then the last half of the trip took 2/3 of the time that we were out there. And so like we got hungry. Between the 4 of us, we lost about 150 pounds.
Holy shit.
Yeah. We were getting ridges on our fingernails from not having enough vitamins. And I just remember this one moment where I knew that I felt like Greg was just going to bite Brad's head off. So I was like, we can't afford to gang up on Brad. Not only is that just like fundamentally wrong, but from like a very like a self-preservation standpoint, it's like we're a 4-cylinder engine out here and we need everybody working as much as they can. And it's like 3 people decide to gang up on one in any kind of situation. That's not healthy for the group. No. If you were a group and you have to get through a thing together. And so what that meant is that I kind of turned in on myself, like all of my rage became internal. And, there was just like ebbs and flows as like people felt good or people felt bad during those days. And I just had this one day where I was rowing with Brad early in the morning. It was great weather. We were making some good time, and he starts talking to me, and it's like, Brad, I just can't talk to you in the morning.
I know those feelings.
And so you're just sitting there rowing along, and I could just kind of see him like I was rowing bow and he was in stern. So I'm just looking at the back of the head. So I kind of saw his head cock and was like thinking about it. And then I was like, and while we're at it, Brad, everybody fucked up on this trip, but you fucked up worse than anybody else. Yeah. And he was like, that's not fair. And I said, I know, and I don't care. And so during this whole time, we're sitting there just raging. But the way that that's expressing itself is like these clean, solid strokes. And we're just like, we don't have enough fuel, but we're just like burning it on after drive. Like as opposed to like beating the shit out of each other. Yeah, we're just sitting there like making this boat move. And then we didn't talk for, we didn't talk like personably for
the other two were
a few days. The other two guys are sleeping.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
And then we rotated people out, and I think the next time I was with Brad, I was just like thinking about this, and I was like, well, being angry is just this heavy thing that I'm carrying.
Yeah.
And it's not making me any faster. It's not making the hunger any less. And I just remember and I had to decide how I was going to feel about this. And I was like, I don't know if it was like a week or two later, but anyway, I just remember in the back of the cabin before we were getting back out to go row. And I was like, look, man, no matter what happens, you got to know that I forgive you for this.
Yeah.
And man, I began just started crying after that. You realize how heavy rage is.
Yeah.
And, we had an awkward man hug in the back of the cabin and went back out. And when you're really hungry and you're working really hard, all the emotions are just really close to the surface. And I just remember this euphoria of having let go. And we would spend, I would throughout the rest of that process, I'd be mad at Brad. And I think that's the interesting thing about forgiveness in my experience is that you can forgive someone and you'll still have that residue of anger. But it was still kind of part of this process. And it just made, I was the team captain on this boat, and it definitely made me a better team captain.
Well, it's also now, how was the relationship between the other two, bro?
It was tense for a long time. Dylan is very much a Zen master. Greg and Brad had a really hard time. But they've since connected afterwards. And I think everybody's, pretty close. It's kind of, I think all the relationships are a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's not like people don't talk.
Yeah.
And and I talk to one of those guys, at least once a week. Often more.
I got to go back to when you realize you're in a shitty situation with food, and you guys would look every morning to see what you had and balance it out. Well, how did you guys balance? What did you eat? When did you eat?
We would eat it'd be 3 meals a day plus a snack.
Okay.
And
you said butter and cheese. What's up with that?
It keeps, especially if it's the right cheese.
So we just mix the cheese and butter and just
put it in polenta.
Okay.
Yeah, put in polenta. We had a bunch of bags of tuna, little Mylar bags of tuna.
That's what I was gonna
mix all that together. It was not the most
rice though. No beans.
We had some rice too,
okay.
And we had a few beans. It was, if I was to do this today, for the second row, we got a sponsorship from a really nice organic market. I'm the first time everything was with a budget, and it was definitely it was the Costco. It was a big Costco buy.
Yes. Yeah.
And so again, you learn things from this, and that's for the second row, everything was dialed in. The food was amazing. We had a wide variety. Everything kept really well. It was perfect.
Nice. And now water situation. How'd you guys balance water?
Yeah, we just make water every few days.
Okay.
When sun was out, make hay while the sun's out.
Yeah.
And we probably kept about 35 to 40 liters and drank a lot of water, drank a lot of coffee.
So now you guys are rowing, you're about halfway, you're hungry, things are slowing down. What's going on now?
Well, the problem I had is that I was not, when you're hungry, I think there's 2 types of people, again, in my limited experience. Either you talk about food or you don't talk about food. And I like to talk about food, and I was on a boat with 3 guys that didn't. And they were rightly absolutely furious. And at one point it was they were like, look, you're talking about this food. It's the only thing you talk about, and it's hurting us. And it's like when you're like, if you're in that, if you're team captain, if you're just part of a team and you realize that you're hurting your teammates. And I was like, again, had to learn that lesson of like just how your words that you think are, seemed harmless at the time, but are having like a real visible effect on the whole vibe of this boat. Cause you're in this fiberglass sliver of civilization, and everything you do has an impact on everybody else. And, it kept going on, and it just felt like it just kept getting slower because the weather wasn't terrible, but it wasn't favorable. We'd sit there out on sea anchor, and it wouldn't want to eat. So we just drank a bunch of coffee because we had a lot of that. And I just remember this finally getting into the English Channel, and it felt like we'd been rowing on a treadmill in this 9 square mile area, and the sun was setting, and there was like a line of clouds across the sky. So it was like dark on one side and light on the other. And we don't want to go on sea anchor because we just don't want to lose any more miles. And out of the darkness comes a red and green light. And at this point, like, we know it's a big ship because we could see it this far in the distance. It's red and green light. It's coming straight at you. We're getting into the most busiest part of this whole experience. And you get on the VHF radio, like channel 13, channel 16.
Yeah.
It's like nothing. And so we're sitting there, and like, this is getting towards the end, and we're not really thinking too clearly. The other guys get out of the cabin, and everybody's looking at this. And then someone says like, oh yeah, we got a flare. Like, this is why we have the flares. So like, again, this is stuff that you'd think of a lot faster if you weren't hungry. But in this situation, everything's a little bit slow. So grab the flares. And then I start reading the instructions, and Greg looks at me and he's like, I haven't had a chance to shoot off a flare yet. Because we shot one off on the 4th of July and for, some birthdays.
Yeah.
For the hell of it, because we're in the middle of the ocean. Probably not the best thing to do, but we did it. And Greg hadn't had a chance. And so in the middle of this disaster that's unfolding in front of us, I was like, yeah, as I hand it to him, and he's like sitting here back and forth reading these, instructions. And finally see this moment of clarity, and it just like fires and goes up in the air. It's 1,000 feet and like 5,000 degrees of magnesium on the end of a parachute's floating down, and this fucking ship is not moving, and we just don't really know what to do. We're just kind of like frozen. And then on the VHF radio, we're hearing this like French voice, "Don't worry though about, we see you."
Oh, really?
And the thing it's a container ship, 400, 500 feet long, and it turns so hard it lists. So just see this giant ship lean over as it banks to miss us.
Holy shit.
And after that, we put out the sea anchor, and it was like, we need to, we got to rest. Like, that was, the intensity of that came upon us in layers. And
did that force you guys to just like, shit, we got to run?
No. It was like, we couldn't, like, we were just in this position where we're like, we had to rest. Yeah. And so this is, we'd been sleeping 2 on, 2 off, 24 hours a day. And so Greg and I were on, Greg and I went off to sleep. And we woke up like 4 to 5 hours later. And this is just like how tough Dylan is. He let Brad go to sleep, and then he just stood watch for 5 hours.
Damn.
Yeah.
So
while there was a lightning storm around us, and there were all of these other boats, and he just like was in his dry suit, and he's wrapped up in a space blanket, doing crossword puzzles, checking her out, and just let everybody rest. And it was like the most humbling thing.
What is savage?
Oh yeah. That really gets me. So I woke up like that morning, and that morning was one of the most beautiful of the whole experience. Because it was like you saw this lightning storm descending into the night, and the morning was coming up on the other side, and like the clouds and the sun like made the ocean look like oiled iron. And I was just like, I was I was so impressed that I was like furious with him. Cause I wanted to be that strong.
Yeah.
But like he gave where he could. And we just kept on after that. And we were, went through like a washing machine later that night. And then, in the distance, we just saw this little bubble of light.
Oh, that's
And it was so far that we like, I think Greg and I finished, and I just went inside to like rest, and then Greg was outside like kind of standing while the other two guys were rowing, stretching. He's like, I think I see something. I was like, fuck, he didn't. It's like, no way, don't even tell me that, don't even tease.
Yeah.
And then Dylan and Brad, like, 30 seconds later, and 30 seconds after that. And then I come out and I was like, and we couldn't believe it. I mean, this was the finish line. This is Bishop's Rock Lighthouse, 50 nautical miles south. When we crossed that, like, that's the finish line. And the next day we hit it dead center, 25 miles down.
So you kept it pretty good heading.
We kept a great heading. And then we still had 70 more miles to make it into land.
So once you hit the light, I still another 70 miles.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we had like, I think 3 days worth of food left. And when we finally came in, it was like we were down to like a half bag of polenta and a bag of tuna, and we came around the corner into Falmouth like to an outgoing tide, and we're coming in at like 1 knot, if that. And I remember sitting down next to Dylan, and I said, like, I'm not standing up until we're on the shore.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's like these 2 castles that guard it. And so this whole, like, the boat was named after my dad, who died of asthma when I was 3, James Robert Hanssen. And so my mom and my stepdad, my brother, and everybody's family was sitting there looking from the castle. And my mom's name is Eve. And as we were coming in, this sailboat named Eve.
It's weird.
Yeah. It was
super weird how shit like that happens.
Oh yeah. And so it came around this corner, and there was like a big naval ship. It was being repainted, turned on its horn, and just we felt the vibrations in the oars. And this old guy came with us, like rowing this lady, and he had like a little like 2-stroke old like putter of a motor, and he just doesn't even look at us, gets right next to us, turns it off, gets up and starts rowing. It doesn't even look at us, just on our wing, bringing us in that last little bit. Then we come around the corner, and there's this big maritime museum, and like people are saying like Michael rowed the boat ashore. And as we just get closer, there's like maybe 30 family that we know of, but there's like 250 people that are like, that we have no idea who it is, that have been waiting all day. And then Brad throws the rope, and my brother catches it, and we come to shore, and just everybody jumps into each other's family. And
that's beautiful.
It was awesome. It was like as the sun was going down, like into this incredibly historic port, it was gorgeous. It was as perfect a moment as I could imagine.
3 days worth of food left?
No, we came in with a bag of tuna and half a bag of polenta. And then when we cleaned out the boat, we found 1 more stick of butter.
So let's say that happened, let's say you did actually run out of food. What's the call?
So one of the other teams did run out of food, and they had a boat that came out and gave them some food.
Does that disqualify?
Yeah.
You guys obviously the first place.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah,
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we got a Guinness record.
That's awesome.
We were the first one to make it from mainland USA to mainland UK without assistance. But I always like to preface that as like the first 2 guys that rowed the ocean, like these 2 Norwegian immigrants who did it from Brooklyn, New York, and they did it in a 18-foot open dory, and they did 55 days from New York to the Scilly Isles.
2 of them.
With 2 of them, yeah. And so like those like that, and that people have rowed faster than that since, but like, and no one's gonna beat that like first legendary trip, because those guys are super hard. But we still we got that little, we made it that extra 70 miles without assistance, so we did get that record, and it's pretty cool to have.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, it's always like I like to have that juxtaposition, because I think it's important to recognize everything that's come before you that makes the things that we do, that much easier, that much more possible.
For sure. Yeah, have you been following Peter Frank?
I haven't.
Peter Frank is the youngest. He just completed it. Was it yesterday? 2 days ago? Yeah, he did the Great Loop counterclock, or I'm sorry, clockwise. So when he got past the Gulf of Mexico and then up the river, he's going against the current up the Mississippi.
Oh yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So there was one guy that did it before him, but he's the youngest to actually complete it. But the guy that did it before him, Peter, that was the first thing he said. I did a podcast with him, and I mean, even when he got back to Michigan, it was the first thing he said. He thanked that guy. He did it, mainly because of him. He wanted to see what he could do now, if it was still doable.
Yeah.
And it was humble of him to say that.
Yeah, I think that's important to kind of to recognize those, all of those efforts along the way.
Yeah. And man,
480 days in a canoe.
yeah, 480 days in a canoe.
It's a long time.
Yeah. I mean, he made a pit stop here in Wilmington because it was so cold in January that he just couldn't do it, And I was like, give me a hold of this guy. Like, let's get him in here,
Yeah, totally.
And it was a great story.
That's awesome.
But yeah, man, no, this is incredible. I can't wait to read this because first of all, everybody said that you're an amazing writer. Have you written anything else?
I've written a lot of articles. I'm working on some novels.
Okay.
I got about 1,200 pages of some historical novels that.
And for those listening, this is Rowing into the Sun. And a lot of this was, I read the first little bit. Shout out to your old man. That's awesome. If anybody listening, definitely check it out. What's it available on?
It's available on Amazon. It's audiobook as well.
Okay, cool.
The audiobook's available on a bunch of different platforms. My website, jordanhanssen.com. You can get there, and I'll sign the copies that I send.
Okay.
It was.
Now, you got a lot going on now because I read on the back. When did you launch this book?
So that book came out in 2012.
2012. So Jordan Hanssen will next row the Mid-Atlantic from Africa to South America.
Yeah, and at this point, that was 10 years ago.
So you got a couple more stories that I want to talk about. We talked about your first trip and your first experience with the book.
Yeah.
In the book, did you talk about any of your next plans yet?
I think just it's briefly mentioned that I was planning another ocean row.
Yeah.
And that was a funny thing about the book was kind of, so that came out. So 6 years passed between, like, this first row was 2006. And I was like day 55, the conversation with Dylan where like enough had happened that kind of no matter what the ending outcome, it was like, I wanted to write a book and we talked about what that would look like. So I knew that was like my intention after I got off the boat. But it took like 6 years to plan this second row. And I think a big part of that was, things, I ended up doing the book and playing that row at the same time. And that's a lot of work. And the other part of that is that everybody who did it the second time around in different parts of their life. And so it looked a lot different than getting ready for this first one.
6 years later, how old are you there?
So I think I ended up turning 30 or 31 when I was out there on it. But yeah, I remember rowing into England and just kind of making that last turn when kind of you're going your open water to inland waters and looking out into the ocean and just thinking to myself, like, I want to be back. And if I wasn't starving, I would just want to put food in this boat and keep going. And it was like, it kind of felt a little like bizarrely, like not like that was a healthy emotion at that moment, but it didn't feel like I was finished with that type of experience. And so
Did the other guys feel the same, you think?
in limited capacities.
Okay.
And I think, I don't know. I mean, I think that, given different times, I think at that point I was probably the only one that like would want to jump into it like that. But I think everybody else, like they're those kinds of, that's part of who they are, is to want to go out and do something like that. So kind of, it was a few years involved. I started figuring out how to write the book, and I studied history at university. So the way that I approached this was I got all of our emails. I looked at all 90 hours of footage, and I typed out what we said. And so when you read a quote in the book, like that's actually what someone said. And the times that I had to like make that up, I like made sure that everybody who was there like agreed.
All from the footage. So you guys had a camera on board.
Yeah, we had a camera on board.
Well, we're gonna need some of that footage.
I know. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is I got all of this footage. So between this and all the other trips, there's 600 hours of footage.
Do you hear that, Drew?
And I'm working with some folks called Inflatable Film, and one of the guys of Inflatable Film, he's been involved since the beginning. I mean, he was out here, just after the finish line, and as we were rolling into Falmouth, Todd was there and like camera in hand, and now 20 years later, we're finally putting all this stuff together.
Hell yeah!
So we're figuring out how to do that. We're looking for sponsors to make that a reality, but like a lot of money has we've made a lot of work so far.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see it because it's like now it's just that trip could have been its own documentary, and the reason that didn't happen was because of the economic downturn in 2007.
Yeah.
And so everything kind of got buried for a long period of time, and then it's kind of all reemerged when we had the funeral for the boat.
This episode's brought to you by ACR. When things go wrong offshore, there's no cell service and no second chances. That's why we trust ACR's EPIRBs and PLBs. It's gear that's built to work when everything else doesn't. I've got an EPIRB on my boat that's mounted right on the center console, and I also have a PLB that's mounted right on my inflatable PFD. So whether it's EPIRBs or PLBs to ditch bags and all survival gear, ACR builds equipment that's trusted by professional mariners and first responders worldwide. You guys can go on ACR's website now and use code TQC10 to save 10% off their entire website.
Before we get into that, was that this trip here from?
Yeah. So what happened with this is that Brad invited me down to do an open water race from Sausalito to right out the Golden Gate Bridge and back.
Okay.
And so he was working for the Northwest Marine Trade Association at the time. And so he just knew a lot of people in the boating industry. And these guys, Whitehall Rowing invited us, me and Brad, and this guy, Adam Creek, who's a Canadian gold medalist who'd gotten gold in the men's 8 in Beijing in 2008. And so this was like in 2009, and we went out, had a great time, raced hard. And I told Adam about the ocean row, and he told me about winning gold. And I was like, feeling antsy. I had another buddy of mine, this guy, Rick, that rowed post-collegiately with me, who's just a badass rower. And he'd come to me and said, like, hey, if you're thinking about doing something like this, then I'm interested. So with that kind of energy, I called up Greg and I was like, hey, man, you want to get the band back together? And he was like, I don't know. I don't think I have another one in me. It's like, yeah, it'll be great this time. There'll be enough food. But it just started this evolving. This second row is like, it took a lot longer. The first one took 18 months. We're all just out of college. We have way less responsibilities. It doesn't take that many more years for those responsibilities to really add up to like plan on being gone for, 4 to 6 months.
Yep.
In a, normal person's life. And so this took 4 years, and without getting into, too many of the details, we decided we didn't want to do a race, just because weren't really feeling that vibe. There's a lot of mid-Atlantic races. But I think the thing that I really missed about the ocean was I didn't want to have an encounter with whales and have to think in the back of my mind, like
being timed.
Yeah, being timed. Like, of course I would stop and watch them, but then to have that stress, it's like the safest crossing in an ocean rowboat is the fastest crossing. But at the same time, like having the, just not having that pressure. So if you're not going to do it for a race, like what's our reason for being out here? And so we started thinking about, it's a really unique platform. And so it's a really unique view of this part of the earth that not a lot of people get to go to. And so like, what kind of science can we do out there? How can we communicate this experience to students? And the technology was coming out there to, make it possible to send video, like for the, first time, like from a rowboat back to shore, like while it was happening.
You can almost study weather too.
Yeah. Oh, totally. So we were we had, we put on like $40,000 worth of scientific equipment on the boat.
Shit.
temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, dissolved CO2. We had a CDT, which is a thing that we dropped in the water, measures conductivity, temperature, and density. We had these little accelerometers that measured our sleep. All this stuff that's kind of like, it's like it's in your watch now and all this stuff, but all these things were like bits and pieces in 2013. And so we ended up partnering with the Canadian Wildlife Federation because Adam is Canadian. And kind of as everything like shook down, Greg wasn't able to go on the trip, but he was able to be our manager. Rick wasn't able to do it. And so we got another guy that I rode with in college named Pat. And then this guy named Marcus popped on as well. And so we had these two Canadians and then me and another guy that, had rode with me and Greg and Dylan and Brad. And then Greg was our shore manager. We decided we were going to go from Africa to the U.S. So Senegal to Miami. And when we got down there, we turned this boat into this like science vessel. And Hurricane Sandy happened.
Yeah.
And so like that pushed everything back for like 55 days. So like we left early November. We were expecting things to arrive before Thanksgiving. And we didn't leave until January.
Wow.
And so that ended up being, having that, we ended up connecting to like the international school there, and then through the international school into some local schools. We had dinner at the U.S. ambassador's house. We did a Christmas party at the British embassy, met a bunch of these incredible Peace Corps volunteers there. Just some really, it was its own adventure. And then the boat shows up and we're, weather is changing. So we're, feeling the pressure to get on. Boat shows up and 5 days later, we're headed out into the Atlantic, headed north. North and west. Like the first few days we got hammered, broken oar right off the bat. We'd had oars that were designed a little bit differently. They were fir instead of ash. And we took some green water over the boat, just cut one of the oars.
No way.
And it happened a few days later. And so then we're just down to like 4 oars. And because the first trip where we didn't have to bring out we never had any danger of the oars breaking. Like we never felt like we were close. So we went with like the same strategy, but because we built the oars a little bit differently, but we thought just as robustly, it was enough that, for most of that trip, we were just rowing without any spares at all.
Was that kind of weather that you experienced right off the get-go there worse than anything you saw on the other trip?
No, I think it was just a little bit. The whole trip, it never got as intense as the North Atlantic, but it was less favorable weather most of the time.
More consistent, I guess.
More consistently, just like not as the level of intensity as Tropical Storm Alberto, but still like just a little bit more aggressive and just a little bit it doesn't take much headwind to shut down an ocean rowboat.
Just snotty.
And I think we were, whereas a lot of the times that particular route, people are going from the Canary Island to the Caribbean like this. We were doing Senegal up to Miami. And I think that this course up here is a lot harder than this one down here.
And then do like a V almost, right? That's what they usually do. So if you go south and then back up.
Yeah. And so we were consistently fighting to get north, and that was a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
But saw dolphins, flying fish, and it's just like this constant science experiment, like running all of these things, taking these psychological tests each day, like filling out these little charts. And it's just like, and then keeping up a blog and sending up video and doing interviews, like all this stuff that was like now possible to have that kind of, we had twice as much solar panels, so we could, we had an Inmarsat on top of our little rowboat. Like, again, all this stuff that the technology was just getting to the point where we could entertain doing that. It just wasn't as good as
better food.
Yeah, and better food. And the food was great. And it was really it was beautiful, and it was like fairly uneventful. It was just like kind of the stuff that you would imagine, like, 4 dudes getting a boat to row across the ocean, see some sea turtles, you see swim with some whales, we got to clean the bottom of the boat, just like these average things. And then just doing all of the extra chores that we had given ourselves on top of all this to to add a level of meaning to what we were doing, to be able to share this incredible experience. The way that I describe it would be, if you think of all of the places that you go to during your week, and like how many places that you drive versus how many places you might bike or walk, and when those places like overlap a little bit, how much more you see when you walk.
Oh, for sure.
And so to be able to try and translate that experience back to people, and, working with the Canadian Wildlife Federation, like they were awesome at getting that reach. We ended up reaching like 80,000 students.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. You're making a huge impact.
Yeah. You hope so. You never know like what kind of, what thing's going to inspire somebody.
Motivation too. That's what Adventure Aaron's trying to do right now. I mean, he had cancer, and he was, survived that, and he's just trying to show people, hey, this things can be done, and then just stay motivated and kind of keep pushing.
I mean, so much of life is just like picking the task and then bringing it, concluding it.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, things were good. We weren't making fast time, but it was like, get knocked around a little bit. But weather is, it's nothing too particularly scary. And so we started to, make our way to the part where we're kind of like past the Atlantic, and we're starting to get into the Caribbean. And in a few days, a day or two before, we were going to be in the Bermuda Triangle. And so like the night or two before, we were in the middle of this lightning storm, and the lightning was like right on top of us, and like the rain was coming down. It just felt like you were in a shower.
Lightning scares the shit out of me.
It is fucking terrifying. And so we're sitting there. I'm out there with Marcus, and we're like looking at each other. It's like too rough to row, but we're kind of, I think we had the sea anchor out. We're just kind of looking at each other, and he like points up behind me, and the antenna is glowing. And like, I felt the static. I had a big beard at that point, and I just felt the static, like just messing with that. And like lightning strikes maybe 30 feet away.
Damn. Yeah, lightning, it's no joke, man. A lot of people take that for granted. Every year, I get a lot of content of people telling like stories and articles, people that shot or struck by lightning on the water. Happens every year. It happened this summer here right in town.
Yeah.
Happened the year before that too. Guy got killed.
Yeah. I mean, it's another thing you got to worry about.
Yeah.
I was going back a little bit, but it's worth
bring it
with it. But yeah, when we were coming into England, maybe like a half mile away, we saw water spouts.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was wild.
Yeah, water spouts are cool.
They're really cool.
But they're no joke either.
Yeah, no, totally scary. We're sitting there, and it's like where we're rowing is perfectly fine, and then a half mile away, like here's water spouts.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we were making pretty good time.
Okay.
I guess. No, we weren't even making that great a time. We were making consistent time.
Yeah.
It was slower than we expected. It was slower than our navigator again.
You guys are rowers, though. It's probably an amazing time. Like if you put like my ass on a rowboat.
But yeah, everything felt slower than what we were hoping for. But again, like the food was holding out. Everything was hunky dory. And I woke up. So the way we set it up for the second, like our shifts on the first trip were 2 hours on, 2 hours off. For the second one, we had a polyphasic sleep schedule, which is a fancy way of saying we slept for a different amount of times at different times of the day. And the keystone of that was a 4-hour row and a 4-hour sleep. And you were able to get some REM sleep from that. And that was a complete game changer. So let's see, I had rowed from like 10 till 2. And then I was down and I was getting up at 6. And when I woke up, like I just woke up on this April 6th, and I just like I woke up excited because I could feel the boat, and like I knew we were going in the right direction. I just all these things at this point, you just get really used to where the sun's gonna be, the way it was coming in the cabin, and I could just woke up really alert, and I was like, we're gonna make time today. I could feel the boat surfing, and then get up, get out there, and switch with Adam and Pat, and things are that we just kind of check in. It's like, yeah, it's getting rougher, but it's like nothing we haven't dealt with before. These were like they weren't that big of waves. And we knew that the boat could handle them. So I switch out with Adam in the bow steering seat, and we have a little foot system to steer. And we're going like down down the waves. Because when you were switching, you might have a certain angle that you're taking with it, but when you would switch, you just go downwind. So he switches out, and then Marcus switches with Pat. And just like to give you an idea of like how normal this was, is like Marcus took a dump every morning at this time. And so he gets up, takes his pants off, gets in front of me, takes a dump in a 5-gallon bucket. And this is how normal this was.
I was going to ask, how do you guys just shit overboard or shit in a bucket?
Shit in a bucket and toss it. And so like, this is normal. Everything's right with the world.
Yeah.
And Pat is reaching out to close the cabin, and I see this wave just kind of jack up behind the boat. And it's not super high, but you can just see the shape. The shape is different. Like instead of shaped like a triangle, it's shaped like a square. And instead of lifting up the stern, it just wraps around and then just dumps water all on the deck. So like 4,000 pounds of water fill up, faster than 2 fire hoses.
Yeah.
And that puts about 4,000 pounds of water weight in the boat. And we have scuppers, but it's pressed down so quickly that it is in the middle of, emerging from this when another wave hits. And then that grabbed the stern of the boat and then surfed our bow into the back of that wave. It was like a 1-2 punch, and it just corkscrewed. Marcus has got literally with his pants down. Pat's trying to close the cabin door, and I'm holding on, and then I just fall in the water.
Holy shit.
We're upside down, and that cabin was open. So when it hit, it starts filling with water. Adam and Pat are inside this cabin, swimming around in it now with all of our gear that's inside. And Adam, who is just an absolute unit, grabs Pat and throws him out. And then he takes a deep breath because, now there's a little pocket of air up there, and dives down. And this all happens in less time that I have time to like emotionally be worried about them.
This was out of nowhere?
Yeah, this was, the weather was a little bit spicy, but nothing that we hadn't rode in before in this way. And I was very adamant later in an interview that I was like, this isn't a rogue wave. Because the way that I understood defining a rogue wave is that it's 3 times the height of the median wave. But then I heard a different definition, which I think rings a little bit more true. It's a weird wave.
Yeah.
And so think about if you're spending a lot of time at sea, there's how many millions of waves end up going when you spend 72 days at sea? And I don't know. I'm sure someone could do the math, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
And so anytime that there's a wave that's a different shape, that is, and if it hits you the right place at the right time, like something's going to happen. And it happened to us. And so we all we're all in the water, and about, but 30 seconds later, it's established, like, we're yelling at each other that everybody's okay. And then we can take a deep breath because we're upside down in the middle of the ocean, but no one's in the cabin and no one appears injured.
So boat's completely upside down.
And now it's kind of like locked into place because the cabin's been, because the cabin door was open, because it was in the middle of that shift change.
So it's full of water, so it won't up right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So like if it had been 5 seconds before, Pat would have shut that.
And then it went.
Yeah. We would have, Marcus and I would have we would have thrown in the drink. We might have, probably lost the bucket. But we probably would have been able to pull it over.
Damn.
So here we are upside down, and we kind of check in with one another. It's, we're still pretty far south, so that the waves are, I think we're at like maybe 12 degrees north. And the water's pretty warm. And so we're able to entertain like, hey, let's try and like flip this boat over. We know it's going to be a lot harder. But before that, Pat climbed on top of the boat, and, we had our PLVs, these ACR PLVs that were all inside our life vests. And,
You had inflatable.
Yeah, when they got turned on, then they were exposed, and you have to manually turn them on. And Pat's like, "How many do we turn on?" And I was like, Adam's he had a pregnant wife and a kid, and I was like, all 4. We want all 4 of these on. We want to make sure it's a big ass splash, and that this is just, at this point, it's not worth. If we could, even if we flipped the boat over, it was just. didn't want to take that risk with someone who's got
No, you have
those kinds of responsibilities.
remember we talked about earlier, like what Brad said, he realized there wasn't enough food.
Yeah.
Same kind of situation. Like don't think about hesitating to press that EPIRB.
Yeah, totally.
Or,
Well,
or POV.
Well, that's the thing is, it was I mean, there was no hesitation. I was like, all four.
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
We're doing all of it because make sure it's a big splash.
The Coast Guard even says that. We talked to them. They're like, we can always turn around. I don't know what well, depending on what area of waters, but they say that to, I mean, we've spoken to them. They're like, yeah, we'd rather you call and not need us, when we find out when we get,
Yeah, totally.
So don't ever wait.
Yeah. So turn these things on, and then we just kind of like check in with one another, like, what's the next thing you do? And so, well, let's pull out the life raft. Pulled out the life raft, set that thing up, tied it to the bow of the boat, and check in again. It's like, well, let's try and set this boat right. So for the next few hours, we got the oars, we got some rope, and we just, all four of us would climb to the top of the boat and just try and pull the boat over. And we did this until we were exhausted. And at some point I was like getting, I could tell I was getting cold, and Adam looked at me. He's like, you're looking purple. And I was like, I look good purple. But I was like, yeah, okay, fair point. Like, it's time to retreat to the life raft. And again, at those latitudes, you hop in the life raft and it's just burning up. And Marcus had, he's just an absolute unit, and he swam out and gotten a bag full of stuff from the boat. So we had all the stuff that's in the life raft, and then we had all the stuff that's that he pulled back. And we're sitting there, and first thing you do when you're in your life raft, you kind of go through all of the stuff you have. So we had some water. We had plenty of water for a few days, and we had plenty of food. And then going through all of the stuff that the life raft had in it. And Marcus pulls out like a little book, and it's called the Little Bible. And Adam was the only guy who really grew up in the church.
Yeah.
But like Marcus kind of looks it up, and we just kind of all look at each other, and it's like, couldn't hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So he starts with Genesis, and like, it's 6 lines in the Little Bible. And he gets to the end of that. And this HC 144 Ocean Century lies overhead at like maybe 100 meters.
Wow.
And Pat goes, he like throws up his hand. He's like, we're going home, and it might be today.
That's fucking wild.
Yeah.
Remember, right before we got back on, we're saying how the sea brings in weird shit.
Oh, totally. And these two Canadians started going, USA, US.
So it was the U.S. Coast Guard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Whereabouts were you guys?
We were 25 miles, 375 miles north of Puerto Rico, and about 25 miles east of the Bermuda Triangle.
We were close.
We were close, yeah. And as our navigator said, he's like, well, technically, you rode across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Just not the other 800 miles to get through the Caribbean.
The air station from Puerto Rico?
Yeah, Puerto Rico station,
San
Juan, and Clearwater.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're going nuts because we hear everything, and then they do a circle, and then they drop a barrel, and so we see this barrel, and it's like amazing that they are able to drop it so close. I'm thinking like, what kind of technology is that?
They're unbelievable.
Well, yeah, and it's like, it's technology. It's that technology is called practice.
They do it every day.
It's like 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato throw.
Yeah.
Like coordination between the guy in the back and.
Dude, they do it every day.
I know, well, because you'd have to.
Yeah. No, and we've experienced it, and I was mind blown. I mean, I asked them like, will you guys fly these every day? Absolutely, we have to.
Yeah, well, because if you're going to use it once, then you have to be practiced, because what they're doing is it's too much detail work.
Yeah. Yep.
So
there's no room for failure.
Yeah. So this thing, it gets dropped, and it's Marcus gets out and he swims to it. He brings it over and crawls back in, and we're looking at this keg-sized barrel, and we're all in this life raft the size of this table. I'm thinking like, where the hell is this barrel going to go? It's like, it's a steel barrel. And so it's got a list of everything that's on it. It's like, it's blankets, glow sticks, some food, and some water. And we're like, we don't need any of that. Like, maybe we'll need it later. So Marcus gets in and like ties it to the bow of the boat. And then we just kind of like wait it out. We don't have we weren't able to retrieve our handheld VHS.
I was gonna say no communication.
So we're waiting it out. And then a few hours later, another another a C-130 comes and trades out with the HC-144, and then they drop another barrel, and this one in like wax letters all over it, like in 8 places. Open me. So Marcus gets out, swims that over to us, and we pull it in, and it's just got it has a list of like 20 items instead of 4 items. And it has like everything that we need, including that VHF radio. And we realized the other one was packed just as well.
Okay.
It just didn't have it just had a list of 4 things. And so like the logic we were going through in that situation was like, this has things that we don't need right now.
There was more in there.
Well, yeah, there was more. There was a VHF radio in both of them, but it didn't say that. But we like read it and had a conversation. We're like, it doesn't make sense to bring this barrel in if it doesn't have anything.
So they mailed, they went the sec went out there, like, open it, motherfucker. Come on.
That's exactly what they said. Yes. Oh, I mean, they're like, these idiots. Like, what's good? What's wrong with them? We get on the, if we pull out the VHF radio, we start talking to them, and they were like, yeah, why didn't you open up the first one? It's like, I don't know.
That's hilarious.
It's
funny, but it's not really that funny.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question, but I mean, it was like, I mean, this was one of those things where it's like, well, you know, like, we read the labels.
Yeah.
Like there was a level of logic that we were working through that like, I think still makes sense. It's just,
no, it does.
It was the wrong decision.
Yeah.
And then we're talking with these guys, and I really appreciate how candid these guys were, because, you know, they touch base. They're able to tell that, you know, we're able to tell them like everybody's alive, everybody's okay. And then they're like, hey, we've diverted the ship, the MV Haijin, to come save you guys. And as we're kind of thinking about that, it's like, well, what's that going to look like? So we get on the VHF radio and we're like, what's that going to look like? And this guy was like, I don't know, but it's going to be interesting. And that level of frankness I thought was really important in terms of like how to think about handling a situation like that, because what I realized is that you have all of this safety equipment and you have all of these things that you can do, you know, these processes and things like that. But when push comes to shove, like you have tools.
Yeah.
And you're going to use the tools available in ways that people expect to use them and ways that are unexpected. So there's no way he didn't know the assets of the vessel that was going to show up. You know, it was a big guessing game. So he wasn't going to bullshit us and be like, oh, it's going to happen like this.
So it's not a Coast Guard vessel.
It wasn't a Coast Guard vessel. So he couldn't tell us exactly what's going to go down. And that was really refreshing. And I think important because it just kept us like, you know, okay, let's drink some water. Let's eat some food. We're going to have to use our brains.
Yeah.
Like we don't know how exactly this is going to go down. So the Haijin came, and meanwhile, you know, the C-130 is overhead, and just hearing that sound was like one of the most comforting things maybe I'll ever experience. And then in the distance, this Russian ship that was headed all the way to St. Petersburg was kind of like a little bit behind. And Haijin was heading to San Juan, Puerto Rico. So that's where it made sense to go. And so for this moment, there's these like, there's like all of us. So we got like 2 Canadians and 2 Americans. And we have these Coast Guard guys that are based out of Clearwater and San Juan, and they have a variety of accents. There's the captain of the Haijin, who's this Bangladeshi guy. So he's got this Bangladeshi accent. And then there's this Russian guy with a Russian accent. And all this is it's like United Nations out here on the water. And I start talking to the captain, and he's like, all right, it's time to, they'd set up downwind of us. And it's like, we'll try and catch you basically. So I look at the ocean rowboat and I think to myself, never see it again. Like this is how it ends. Cut the line.
Oh, that sucks.
And just watched it for a moment, and I was like, I'll never see you again. It's been real.
That's a shitty feeling, huh?
It was a shitty feeling. But then turn around, and here's the Haijin. It's the size of a skyscraper laying on its side, and we are coming in quick, and I can see these guys dressed up in they got orange coveralls, they got their white hard hats, everybody's got their PFDs on, and everybody's got their line ready, and you can just see these guys, they are tense. And as we get close, like the water turns from gray to turquoise as the bow thrusters are just just churning up this water. And we hit this and we just start hauling ass down the boat. And they're throwing their lines and everything. Like no one really expected when it hit the bow thrusters to be spinning like that, what a current that would do. And so they were throwing as fast as they can. We hit the wake from the stern, and that kind of threw us back out, and they had to reset again. So the second time around, we managed to catch the pilot's ladder, and we just start crawling up this thing as fast as we can. And then the crew were all from the Philippines, and these awesome guys, and they wrapped us with blankets. They gave us hugs, and they were like, "You're okay." We were like, "You guys are our heroes." And we're like, "No, you guys are our heroes."
That's how big was it?
It was 480 feet, and it was a roll-on, roll-off car carrier.
I would have been shit my pants watching that thing come up next to me. Like,
oh yeah, no, it was wild. It was, and you could see just I don't know the last time this thing was painted. It doesn't take long for that paint to start working its way off, but it's like you could see just big bubbles of paint, and some rust beneath it, and it's just, and you're sitting there in this rubber life raft.
Was it tough getting on that pilot's ladder?
Oh yeah, because it's like you grab onto that thing and then the wave goes down 6 feet.
Yeah,
and I didn't have my PFD on at that point because it had gotten hit with some flare, and so it popped.
Oh no!
And so the other guys had their PFDs on, and mine was useless. And so I remember just grabbing onto this ladder and just. I can feel it now, just like I was so aware of what I was grabbing at every single grip on my way up to the top. And, we showed up and we're sitting there like everybody's in their undies because that's pretty much what we rode in, especially like at night when it wasn't raining or too wavy. And so these guys this crew pulls up these, half naked dudes out of the ocean. And I got this beard down to my chest, and they put blankets on us. And it was bizarre to walk into this roll-on, roll-off car carrier because it was mostly empty.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'd gone like from this rowboat to this life raft, 72 days, and then up into this thing. And then you're sitting in a floating parking garage.
Yeah.
It was just bizarre.
Sounds like you all kept your cool though, for the most part. Did anybody really let's say, start really panicking?
No, I think we were lucky in that we'd spent a lot of time thinking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so it was like we knew what to do, and we had an idea of what to do, because I think all these situations are a little bit different. And so it went as smoothly as something like that could go down.
It's good to hear.
In having experienced that, nobody really lost their cool. I mean, did people get to the edge? Like, yeah, but I think if we'd spent another day out there, like that might have changed things. But things happened when they did, because we got the rescue started as soon as possible. In terms of preparation for this, for the second row, we went to the dealer for the ACR PLBs, and he was known for writing what's the best grab bag. And everything in the ocean rowboat has to be designed for something that's a little bit smaller, because you just have to you're out there for so long.
Yeah.
Everything's got to be reduced, and it's like a really annoying game of Tetris.
Yeah.
And so things have to be made smaller when possible. And he made this incredible list, and that was a few years ago. And I was talking to him, and I was like, "What would be in your grab bag today?" And this was in 2012. He's like, "I just take a PLB for each of you."
Yeah.
And he's like, then he would further that by saying, "I'd take it over a gallon of water." And so just in terms of where the technology had reached at that point, was very profound to me. It's not like we wouldn't also take water, but at the same time, this was just highlighted at how important this tool was and how well it worked.
Yeah.
And so when it came to that moment, getting that rescue started as fast as possible is the reason why we were able to keep it together. Things were happening. Again, if we had been for a disaster, everything happened at the right time. If that had happened at night, they would have been able to find us, but they wouldn't have been able to see us until 12 hours later.
Mm-hmm.
But everything happened early in the morning, and things that we were found before 10 o'clock, between I think 10:30 and 11.
Found that quick.
Yeah. I mean, hours.
Wow.
hours. And basically we hopped in, we tried to flip the boat as long as we could. We hopped in, we were maybe in the life raft for 45 minutes before the Coast Guard were flying overhead.
Yeah, they sell ACR sells a whole ditch bag now, and another important thing that we discussed when I was talking to them is where you place that on your vessel.
Oh,
too.
totally.
Because I mean, the ditch bag is how fast can you grab it?
Yeah.
Now, that's the nice thing about the EPIRBs; they'll pop up and automatically go off when they float.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's why I like the PLBs is that you can put those, keep them on your person.
I always, when I worked with CTO, I always had it on my life jacket because it's there.
Yeah,
you know?
totally.
But a ditch bag, if whatever you want to put in there, doesn't matter. I mean, but
Yeah.
having, what's the point of a ditch bag? Like where you guys, like totally stuck inside the.
Well, and that's the thing is that we had our life raft. Our life raft was always like very visible because it's like strapped to the deck where we could get a hold of it. But there's that balance of it's got to be secure and it has to be available to grab, and so you're making really on no matter what boat it is, you're making some kind of compromises and you're extrapolating like given these situations. And I think it's important just to think through all of those worst case scenarios. And that was kind of I think one of the things about the rowing is that you have so much downtime. A lot of times we just sit there and have conversations about, what fucked up thing might happen and what we were going to do about it.
Yeah.
We started, when we started breaking these oars, like we had these big, with these incredible warlocks the second time around. Cause on the first trip, they didn't really work that well. They were flat water equipment. And, we kept breaking the pins that you work against. So like, that's where, the action, and oar is a lever and a fulcrum.
Okay.
And so you have these things called the thole pins where the oar like sits and the work is done against the thole pins, lever and a fulcrum. So the first trip, these things kept breaking because we had these super stout oars. And these pins are like 7/16 stainless steel. Like they're stout.
They're bright.
Yeah. And they're just, sometimes it wouldn't feel like anything.
Holy shit.
So we got these whitewater bronze oarlocks for the second time around, but we needed to open them up. And we didn't do that until we were out at sea and we broke into oars. So if they couldn't get out of the oarlock quickly, then they were going to break a lot easier. And so I had to sit out there and it took like 4 hours, about an hour for each one. And I took a bolt and a nut that was machine screwed. And then I put it in between the horns. And then I just sat there with a pair of pliers and locking pliers and just did this. And like bent these out enough that they would just finally pop out super easily. Something that would have been, probably taken 15 minutes for each in a shop, but, doing that just myself. But then after that, the oars didn't break.
So we left saying you cut the line and you had to watch the boat go.
Yeah, so cut the line and floated towards this. The skyscraper laying on its side in the water. And the, like I said, the turquoise of all this tumultuous water from the bow thrusters. We started just sliding down the side of the ship. And all these guys are throwing all these lines and every single one's missing. And they have to like reset the boat, go a little bit more downwind. And then we get blown right into them again. And that's when we catch the pilot ladder, climb up this thing. And I walk through this garage, basically. It's a roll-on, roll-off car carrier. And then up a set of stairs and into this little wardroom. Mm-hmm. And they got blankets, they got soup. And then one of the guys like, who's in charge? And it was me. So I walk up to the bridge in my undies, with this big beard. I'm like as tan as I get, which is not that tan, but I'm as tan as I get. And I walk in and like, there's guys that are in coveralls. And then the officers that are all like have epaulets. Yeah. And they're like these crisp uniforms. And there's this moment where like I walk in and I don't know what they were expecting to see or what I was expecting to see.
Underwear.
Yeah, I'm in my underwear. Wow. And we're just like staring at each other. The guy like hands me the radio and he's like, the Coast Guard wants to talk to you.
What did the Coast Guard say?
Well, the Coast Guard was like, hey, just want to make sure you guys are on board.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you say? Like, how do you say a thank you to that at that point? I was like, yeah, we're good. Like thank you. But like, yeah, we're running out of fuel. We got to go.
Yeah.
Like, see you later. And yeah, I mean, it's, when someone saves your life like that, the emotion that I felt was like, I want to meet these people.
Yeah.
But they were off and on their way. And, yeah, we went down, they gave us a huge meal. They were a dry boat, but they did have some beers, and the captain let us have a few.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, I mean, it was great. These crew, it was like a Bangladeshi officers and a Filipino crew. And, everybody was just an absolute delight. And we spent the next 24 hours watching Bollywood movies.
And then where did they take you?
San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we roll into San Juan, and, no one's got their passport, everything's back of the boat. And we're in these, like, they give us these dry orange coveralls that don't fit because we're, way bigger than all these guys, sandals that don't fit. So we're like, we show up barefoot. I mean, looking like with crazy hair, beards, looks like we'd escaped an insane asylum. Made it to Station San Juan, and Greg, who just kind of like comes out from behind everybody after, we've hugged it out with our family. He's like, I hope you guys are prepared for the next thing, because we got an interview at 5 a.m. tomorrow with the Today Show.
Already?
Yeah.
Damn.
And because the thing is like, we came in on a Sunday night, and it was like, we spent 4 years putting this project together.
Yeah, yeah.
And, and Greg was, the reason we had a shore guy, one of the many reasons was to communicate this experience to the students, communicate it to the media, because we had a sponsorship. So we had to have all of that together. And we had this disaster happen. Could have been a lot worse, but we were going to make sure that we were going to be the ones telling the story.
Yeah.
And Greg had that locked down. And so that next day was out of all of these experiences, that next day was one of the most wild. And that was just doing interviews from the hotel lobby. We had like 6 computers out, cell phones ringing off the hook. All of our family was there. Beers and pizzas were coming in. I had like 2 full nights of sleep. So my energy, and we'd been well fed on this row. So like I was super fit, and just energy was just, the adrenaline was pumping through the roof. I was doing interviews in the hotel gym, just like crying and doing
really
bicep curls.
Damn. So this took off.
Yeah, it was like, we did like 30 interviews that day. And so, and then on Tuesday, the CEO of the Canadian Wildlife Federation, a guy named Wade Lundsey, showed up, and he was just happy that we were okay. But, then the next thing he said, he was like, well, what about the boat? And it's like, we rowed across the ocean, to raise, awareness of ocean problems and, ocean ecology. And it just like didn't feel good that our boat was out there without us, like just kind of turned into like another floating piece of junk.
So, I mean, this is probably a dumb question, but everything failed on there, so you can't track this thing.
Well, yeah. So, and they had dropped and so because the PLBs were all on us.
Yeah.
And so we were, they had the Coast Guard has a drift beacon they dropped down
in that barrel.
Well, it's in addition to the barrel, and this thing looks like a droid. It's like it dropped in the water, and like these little a little antenna pops up, and then underneath the water, these wings pop out, so to like hold it in place. So they had that drift buoy, and that was going to be good for like 30 days. But it wasn't. I mean, if we'd had the wherewithal, I would have tied it to the boat.
Yeah.
Didn't have that at the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're, we'd been working with the Canadian Wildlife Federation, and it just like, again, just didn't feel, we had all of this equipment that was still on the boat. We had all of this footage that we'd taken, passport, Adam had his wedding ring, all of these things that were on there, that it's like, and this was before the Malaysian flight. And, Wade asked me, he was like, what about the boat? And I was like, well, if I'm going to be completely honest, if we don't look for it, we're not going to find it. But if we look for it, we're probably not going to find it either. Yeah. And then Wade says, like, one of the scariest things that's ever been said to me before. And he was like, go for it. And I was like, at that point, it was like, I got to go until I hit a wall. And like right now, like I thought the wall was here, but it is not here. I just have to keep going. So we did all these interviews on Monday, and then on Tuesday there was like, I was just kind of like feeling out, whether or not we were going to be able to, whether or not this was possible. So I'd made a few connections, and then on Wednesday, end up locking those down. We meet this guy named Raul, and he was this awesome Puerto Rican guy, and he had this little scar on his lip, and he'd been like, he worked in airplanes, but he'd been a TV presenter before, so he had that kind of personality.
Yeah.
And he's like, amigo, we're gonna find the boat. And I was like, oh man, you believe a lot more than I do at this point.
And my thought would be, okay, let's see where the current was, and then let's. Is it a hazard to navigation?
Well, it's a 30-foot boat, so like yes and no.
Okay.
Not a hazard, yes, that big of a hazard that's worth the effort.
That they're gonna say.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the Coast Guard said, it was Officer Chris Harper. He's like, they have this drift algorithm they can put together. So they have that beacon in the water, and then they have the size of the boat, and they have all the weather, and they feed all of it in. And so they had like, we had an area like as like 400 square miles where it could be, which is still massive.
Yeah, huge.
So, and we're in the middle of nowhere. It's 375 miles north of Puerto Rico. Like it's in the middle of nowhere. And I had this other kind of like poignant moment as Raul was getting ready to, he was like, before he got on the airplane, he was, he like pulls out his EPIRB, and he's like, we're going into a place where like not a lot of people go. And he whips this thing out, and I was like, that looks familiar. I was like, I hope we don't have to use that. But it was interesting because, so like Wade took everybody to dinner on Wednesday night, and that's when we agreed to do it. And so I called up Raul, and the next morning, like Thursday, he's going to pick us up at 7 a.m. He calls me, and he's like, for another $2,000, we can get a bigger airplane. I can get you another half hour in the search zone. I was like, fuck it, let's go. We didn't get this far. Like it's probably not going to be out there, but we like, maybe this is the wall. I don't know, but like, this is going to be hard no matter what. And if we have the choice between like 45 minutes or 90 minutes out there, if I know I have that option, I'm going to wonder if like 45 minutes was what I needed for the rest of my life. If I don't do it. But if we go out there and we give the full 90 minutes, if we do or we don't, we'll know. So head out in this, twin engine turboprop and fly out into the middle of nowhere. And I'm with Greg and our photographer, Aaron, and Aaron is this badass photographer who she'd been there in New York. She was in England. She was in Senegal. And now she was here on the airplane looking for,
She's filming all.
Yeah, she did the stills for all of this. Marcus's brother was filming all the video. And Pat didn't end up staying on shore, and then Marcus and Adam couldn't go because they didn't have their passports.
That sucks.
Yeah.
They're on the freaking boat.
Yeah, I know. So we go up in the air, and it's like, I don't know, 90 minutes or 2 hours to get out there. And we all just like, once we get up to cruising speed, we just pass out. And then Raul wakes us up. We drop down to about 800 feet, and we just start going back and forth and back and forth. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, this is just fucking stupid.
Yeah.
But I was like, we just have to focus for 90 minutes.
Yep.
Like after this, it'll be over in 90 minutes. Like then we can walk away from this. And we said we gave it our best effort. And that's what we need out of this experience. And we're cruising back and forth. And then Aaron and Greg start like arguing over whether or not they saw something.
Yeah. I would be doing this. But what the fuck was that?
Well, yeah. And then I turn around and I was like, it's our aircraft for the day. Like it's ours. We can tell the pilot what to do.
Yeah.
So Raul tells the pilot, and he turns around, and as this thing banks, it's just the wing does a Vanna White.
No
way. And there's the boat, and there is that first orange barrel that's tied to the bow. That's like unmistakable.
Holy shit.
So we're just, tears are running down, and it's like, okay, so now what? We gotta fly back.
Now you gotta mark it. Yeah. What do you mean my next one? Now what?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So came back and it turned out we landed and it turned out that Pat's roommate from college, his father ran Foss Tugs. And so we were able to get a connection to Barinkin Towing in Puerto Rico, and they were kind of in between trips, and they were willing to basically give us a deal, which was still very expensive to go out and retrieve the boat.
Okay.
And so this is like, and this happens, we land, we're back at the hotel at like 5 p.m. and we tell everybody. And then by 10 p.m., we've agreed like what we're going to do with Barinkin Towing, and they pick us up at 7 the next day. So, next morning we're at we're in this 110-foot ocean tug, called Ocean Century. And I mean, these guys were awesome. I mean, it was like Central Casting Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Like there were at least 3 languages being spoken on board. And these guys just, gruff, grizzled, big hearts. They thought we were absolutely crazy. And we go and we bunker fuel and I just pass out. Then when I wake up, we're out back at sea, and things are, we're already out of sight of land. It's going to take us about, basically 2 days to get out there, and we're going to have 3 days in the search area and then 2 days to get back. So they're not going to get in the water if we find it. And so Marcus and I sit there and we're trying to come up with a plan of using the tools on board, because we've never done any of this before. And we don't really know exactly what they have available. They got a crane.
They have a crane.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a few other things, but first off, we got to find it, but we come up with a plan, and it seems like, who knows? We get out there the first day, and the first 2 days while we were going out there, these guys thought we were nuts. But then by the time we got there, everybody was excited. So as soon as the lights out, we had people scanning, and then ran through some shifts. So because it's, staring out there in the bright sunshine all day, I'd go down and close my eyes for a half hour, come back up and scan.
That's wild though. I can't imagine you see it on an airplane, then you had to wait 2 more days and then go try to find it again.
Well, I mean, it took us 2 days to get out there.
Yeah. Okay. 2 days to get out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we left, we got in on Thursday. We got in on a Thursday, and we left early that next week.
We're starting from starting from scratch.
Totally. I mean, it's a smaller needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
So that first day, and at the end of that first day, I called up Greg on the sat phone, and I was like, we're just screwing around out here if we don't send up the airplane again. It wasn't, we have to have these eyes in the sky, because we thought it would be a lot easier to be in the tug, and, that it would be a little bit easier to find, given that we had just put eyes on it the day before, and no crazy weather had happened.
Mm-hmm.
But that just wasn't the case. So, the next day, I know when the airplane is going to go up, and I know when they're going to be on station. And I'm just thinking, I'm going to look up and I'm going to see this aircraft coming in, and it's going to do a few zigzagging. Then it's going to do a circle, come by and tip its wings. And
it's right here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't see him the entire day. And so all the energy just goes out of the boat, and everything suddenly gets incredibly lethargic. And then I'm sitting up there on top of the bridge, and this guy, Jorge, comes up. He's like, dude with the beard. Amigo, they found your boat.
Damn.
It's it's 20 miles away. So we go at and it's getting towards the end of the day. And so just go at a very slow 2 knots to, on the chance that we might run into it. And at 5 a.m. the next day, the shift that was supposed to go to bed, everybody stayed up. And so we had the whole crew, everybody's eyes were out. Aaron was sitting in there, had there was a deck chair just outside the bridge. And she raises her hand and points in this direction. At the same time that the captain comes out, and he was his name was Israel, and he was a Muslim from Honduras. It's just a wonderful mixture of people out there.
Everybody.
And he'd been looking at the radar, and so he gets out and he's pointing in the same place that Aaron's pointing, and then they point to me with the binoculars, and I bring it up. I just see this little sliver of gray, and that was the boat. So we get up on it, and we have as good a weather as we could possibly have
Yeah.
for this situation. And so uh, Marcus and I get in the water, and we wrap some rope around it.
Mhm.
And the idea being that you get the crane going up, and then the line goes down, and then it kind of unwinds it open. Like that didn't work. It just started like pulling it closer and closer to the tug. So they let it out all the way, and then Marcus and I hold onto the dagger board, and then they just gun 6,000 horsepower on this tugboat to flip it back
Oh,
around.
did they flip? Okay.
Yeah, and so like while we were on it,
Holy shit.
so it flipped it back around, and then it flipped upside down again, and then we had to set it back up and do the same thing. And then I held the boat steady while Marcus got on board and pumped out all the water. And then we got it close to the boat, and we picked it up. And even though it was very, very good, it was very, very good weather. It still just got slammed up against the side. And
They're fucking up pretty good.
I mean, it didn't look too bad, but it's kind of hard to. It was enough that I didn't trust it. Like it was of an age and of a design. Like things had just gotten so much better in the years afterwards that I wouldn't trust it for myself. And if I wasn't going to trust it for myself, I wasn't going to trust it to like sell or donate to somebody to do an ocean row. Because if something did happen and I had that kind of question, I'd never be able to forgive myself. Like, even if I'd been able to like sign a waiver and be like, hey, you're taking something that's been damaged.
Yes, you can't. I'd put that thing in my backyard and make it like a decorative piece.
Well, yeah. So what we I mean, I didn't have space in my backyard for for that, but it stayed at a museum for about 10 years. And then so kind of in the meantime, this was at a museum, and after we got back, we wanted to continue with the adventure education stuff, because like that was like, it just felt like a good reason to go out and do these kinds of adventures. And I'm still feeling that kind of energy. And Greg and I had done a trip where we took this open water boat, this Gig Harbor Boat Works. It was a melon seed around the Olympic Peninsula and turned it into an island, which was its own wild, like 21-day trip. But we spent a lot of time in swamps, turning that peninsula into an island. It was like a lot of portaging. Things got pretty creative. But because of that, we'd kind of thought about the Mississippi River as like something that we'd want to go down. And then thinking of it again through this lens of having done this adventure education stuff, we're like, well, this is a good format for that, because it's a lot more repeatable. We can actually get into classrooms while we're doing the trip, and we can have that personal interaction. And that was something that was a lot more inspiring to us. And so the organization that we created for the first trip, it was called Or Northwest. And so we did these 2 ocean rows, and then we did 2 Mississippi rows and a trip down the Columbia River. And the first Mississippi row was all guys that had done an ocean row. The second trip was down the Columbia River, and this was with 2 women who had rowed at University of Puget Sound. And then the next trip was we created a class at the University of Puget Sound that was adventure education, and 4 of those folks were like the shore side of things, and the other 4 folks went down the river. And so the idea of like keeping these this data collection as something that was happening on a regular basis, and being able, the more regular data you can collect, the better your data gets. Mm-hmm. And so the idea was to make something like this a repeatable experience, and also, set it up so that it was not us going down, doing these trips, but able to pass that knowledge on and give those people that experience, and trying to figure out how can we have an adventure and do the most good with it.
Yeah.
Like, what is the point of an adventure?
Yeah.
Like, there's personal satisfaction. There's like, what are you bringing back to the tribe?
Yeah.
In terms of, and that was the question we were trying to figure out, is like how to do that best. And we ended up getting published. We worked with LSU and UW, and a paper got published about the water quality on the Mississippi River. And we ended up getting some papers published from data we collected on the second ocean row. And so it was working, but we were just able to get the funding for about 10 years. So like Or Northwest was 2006 through 2016, and that was our last trip. And then took like 2 years to really wind it down properly. And in that time, I ended up I kind of had my first tall ship experience. I got invited to help sail the schooner down the coast of West Coast, so from Friday Harbor in Washington all the way to San
That
Diego.
was badass. For anybody listening, look follow.
Well, that's not even the ones you've seen. That was so I did that, and then I worked on a fishing boat. So I kind of had these other experiences, and I ended up I had this rowboat that had gone down the Mississippi River, and I turned that into this Airbnb experience, where I basically take people for these 7-mile rows around Seattle. And we do bird watching, local history, and just kind of giving people a chance to like go with this like wonderful walking pace around this really, really gorgeous city. And then COVID happened. And so that all of that got closed down. And I like the month that people started to take it seriously, it was like mid-March.
Yeah, a little crazy.
Yeah. And rowing's my thing, what I do to blow off steam. So that's what I did. Went out. It's one of these beautiful days on the Puget Sound. It's in early spring where it's cold and but it's perfect like wool sweater weather to like get out there and like really like work yourself. And sun was going down behind the Olympic Mountains, and I'm rowing along with my housemate, and I start hearing this music come across the water. And I turn around, and there's this grizzly man with his big beard and an even bigger saxophone, and he's just playing like he has no worries. And I just saw that, and I was like, I think I need more of this, and maybe the world does too.
Oh, for sure.
And so I went back home and started reaching out to my friends, and I was like, I know the world's coming to an end, but would you like to sing a song on a tiny boat? And of course, nobody got back to me in about a week. But then a week later, people, it started to get a little bit of traction. And over a 3-day weekend, I ended up filming 11 artists, sing 4 songs, in various little spots around the Puget Sound. And it was like the perfect social distancing thing at the time, because, I had about, more than 6 feet between me and the bow of the boat and them in the stern. And it was outside. It was just like this thing where people could kind of express, whatever they wanted to express. Like that, I had no genre that I wanted to hear. I just wanted to hear like, what's the song you want to sing in a tiny boat? It just seemed like a little, it's the big middle finger to all of the shittiness.
Yeah.
And so shot those 11 people. And the last one that I got was on a Monday at 5, like right when the stay-at-home order, went out. And that was when, and that was, so I had like 44 songs, and that was when everybody was like, oh, this will be over in a few weeks.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, but I fed out like a song a day, and I was like, here's just everybody stuck at home. Here's this beautiful little thing. So I'm playing the song in the back of a tiny boat in this like beautiful background.
Yeah.
And of course, COVID kept going on. And then I was like, I don't think I'm done with this. I'm going to do like a season 2. Mm-hmm. So I went out and, filmed a few more people and started feeding those out. And it was just me and the boat and the artist and then my phone. And that's all I was doing with.
See this boat, man.
It's awesome. I got a tinyboatsession.com. It's wild. And one of the guys that I'd met from season 1 invited me to help sail his boat from Hawaii back to Seattle. And I ended up taking some footage with him. And I was like, still think I'm not done with this.
Yeah.
So I hadn't seen my parents in a year. I drove down to New Mexico, and they live right on the Rio Grande. And I wandered down to the Rio Grande, and I was like, if I could find a tiny boat, I could tiny boat session down here.
Yeah.
I called up my brother's old Scoutmaster, and he had a red canoe, and he let me borrow that. And so I brought it down to this beautiful little part of the Rio Grande that's a little oxbow lake. And I started reaching out on Facebook. And this woman who works for Gig Harbor Boat Works that built my rowboat, she happened to know a bunch of people in the flamenco community in Albuquerque. And it turns out like New Mexico has some of the most flamenco outside of Spain in the world.
I've been to Albuquerque before, and I've heard that. Yeah, it's weird.
It is. It's weird, and it's super cool. So suddenly I got these like world-class flamenco guitarists and singers that are in this canoe, and had all of these just awesome people. And one of them, she was like, well, I used to live in Humboldt. She's like, are you gonna shoot some people in Humboldt too? And I was like, I don't know. And I was like, well, maybe I will. I'll just find boats and people all the way back. And so that was probably one of those challenging logistical things I've ever done, was drive from New Mexico back up to Washington. And I was arranging, like during COVID, so like making sure everything's social distance. And I was arranging boats I'd never been in with people I'd never met in places that I'd never been.
You're doing all these just like cruises, this little.
Yeah. And so I ended up shooting like 50 people on that one.
Damn.
And so that was season 3. And then again, I just kind of like, I'd finish it, I'd kind of process it. And I was like, am I done with this? And it just didn't feel like it. So I ended up doing another one up in Seattle. And then I was going to go down to New Orleans to do some research for these books that I've been working on. These historical novels. But I was like, if I'm going to go down to New Orleans, because I'd had a new interest in this place after going down the Mississippi River twice. I was like, if I'm going to go down to New Orleans and do this research, I'm going to want to get on the water. And I'm going to get on the water, then I'm going to tiny boat session. So I go down there and I call my buddy Driftwood John.
Driftwood John. Why is he always on the water?
But yeah, no, he runs this place called Quapaw Canoe up in the Clarksdale, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, Driftwood, you know anybody down here? And he's like, oh yeah, I think Wolfie is still living down there. So I met Wolfie at this place, Cafe Fatima, and Wolfie shows up. He's got like a neatly trimmed red beard, and he's wearing a sundress. And I used to running these, working for Driftwood John, up taking people on these canoe trips, and tell him about these projects I'm doing. So like the kind of history research for the books, and then this tiny boat session, and have a great conversation for like 2 hours. And later that day, he sends me a picture of a poster advertising a fundraiser for a lost canoe. He's like, talk to Phoebe at the, she's in the Greek band.
Yeah.
So I'm staying at this little shotgun shack on the corner of Murray and Music Street in the Marigny district. And so I start walking down Burgundy, and then I run into this, this woman who's sweeping up these really neat piles next to this purple house. And she's just got this, beautiful gray, curly hair. We just strike up a conversation because I'm walking down New Orleans. I got a beer in hand. It's 5:00. I'm headed to a fundraiser for a lost canoe.
Yeah.
So we start chit-chatting. Turns out she's a jazz singer, and her parents are the oldest buskers in New Orleans. They've been busking in New Orleans for 40 years. They've been playing together for 60.
That's wild.
And
What
so,
odds you run into that?
oh yeah. So we had this incredible, interaction. Keep walking down Burgundy to go to this fundraiser for the lost canoe. And this was like, I walked into the back of this little house, into this yard. And I was like, this was the moment that it was like, COVID's over. And it was like all of these wonderful little Chinese lanterns, this music, they're serving oysters on the half shell. They got cocktails, and just the music is absolutely beautiful. I introduced myself to Phoebe, enjoying the music, the vibe. Don't know anybody there. I hear Albuquerque, and I turn around, and there's this red-haired woman named April. And I was like, hey, what's your connection to Albuquerque? And she was like, oh, I used to do flamenco there.
Wow.
And so she ended up knowing all these people that had done these tiny boat session. And so basically with those 3 contacts, I ended up meeting these incredibly talented artists in New Orleans. And then a cousin of mine lives in Mobile. He knew this guy named Johnny Hayes that he was friends with. And so through him, I got all these incredible people. And
all just connected together.
well, yeah. And I got to Drew from the Red Clay Strays ended up. Yeah, he's
all these people just playing on this boat.
playing on the tiny boat. And so
Still going on?
yeah, I'm finishing it up right now because I got to like work on some other projects. But I'm right now I'm at a season 8. But like on the way back, I just kept meeting these wonderful people like Haley Tuck, the cowgirl of Paris, like in Bastrop, Texas, like, which was completely unplanned. And then when I got back to Albuquerque, I had this vision of like flamenco on the sandbar. And then I had, had these folks come out and do flamenco on the sandbar.
Dude, this is you built like a little franchise.
It's just been this really beautiful, gorgeous experience. And so, but the body of work that began during COVID, I'm bringing that to an end. And I don't know if if I decide to do it again, maybe I will, maybe I won't. I just there's other projects I need to do.
Yeah, where are you at right now, man? Just moving forward, it's 2026.
Well, so the only right now I'm working on a film. I'm working on a film with inflatable film, which half of which is again it's Todd and Leah, and Todd, they're married, and Todd was on the very first trip, and he filmed leaving New York and arriving in England. And he's a character in this book. You'll read about him. And now he and Leah are working on the film, and we're looking for the sponsorship to make that thing happen and tell a really good story. And what kind of got that that's the main thing I'm working on. And what really got that started was the boat funeral. The other thing that happened during COVID is that the museum that was keeping the boat, they just kind of lost interest in it. They were just focusing on different things. And so they moved it outside. The homeless guy started sleeping in it.
Oh, that sucks.
Well, and it was one of those things where that was my initial reaction. But then I was like, that boat protected me. And it's if that gave him a calm, protected night or two, it made me feel less bad about that. But it was it wasn't an option for that to continue to be there. And so, Greg and I talked about it, and it was we got to come up with a responsible way to get rid of the boat. Because you're in the boating community. I'm sure you see a lot of boats that are derelict.
I've done plenty of podcasts. Well, one big one about long story short, yes.
And so we wanted to do this in the most responsible way possible. We also we had to make it go out with style. So we decided that the last mission for the boat was going to be a beer run.
I love it
for the ruckus, which was the party that is in between the 7048 human powered race from Tacoma to Port Townsend, and then the ruckus, and then a day later it's the race to Alaska, which is a non-motorized race to Alaska.
I'm gonna go check that out. All right.
And so we just started. We decided we're going to load it up with beer, and that'll be what we do. And so this whole process was trying to figure out, kind of dredge up all the people who'd been a part of this. And it ended up being this crew of new and old. And we left a few days before the race started, and it became this wonderful goodbye of people that had been involved with the project for a long time, and then random people that we met that were we stopped at a bar because we were just along the we were waiting for a place that we were going to moor a boat. We grabbed a drink. This father and son came up to us, and they were like, "We know what you're doing, and we think it's awesome."
Hell yeah.
And it was just these guys didn't know they just knew what they'd read, and they were talking to me and Greg, who've been involved in it since the beginning. Made our way up. And for the ruckus, we pulled her out of the water and served beer out of the boat, and for this one day, she was the center of attention again. And the next day, I had this cannon that I used to start the race to Alaska, and everybody left, put the boat in the water for the last time, had some bagpipers, and they started to play, and this little flotilla. And rode her this last mile, pulled her out of the water. And then all these people that had helped build her, everybody put hands on, had all these tools. And she just started getting torn apart. And it all happened so quick. And people were just tears start coming down. And people who I didn't really know were as close to this project as I thought, it was having this really intense feeling. And so she gets fully stripped. And, so this guy, Dave Robertson at Gig Harbor Boat Works, who built the seats, he came up to me afterwards, and he was the damnedest thing happened. He's we were taking the boat apart, and I put out all my tools, and I looked over 30 seconds later, and I was they're all gone. And I was oh, fuck, they're, I'm not going to get in, I'm going to be missing tools at the end of this. And he's when it was all done, every single tool was back in the same place.
Wow.
And it was, and so, we was at the boatyard at Port Townsend, and so I get up on top of the boat and kind of give a little spiel. And my brother, he's a Marine, and I gave him the flag that had been on the boat when we capsized. And then I just like really bothered me about this last moment. It's like, this boat is like, we took all of her riggers off. She actually had no form of propulsion. So like I'd gotten into carving paddles as like a meditation. And so one of the first ones I made, like I got the guys together and we all broke it over the bow, shoved that in the front. And then Greg looked at me, he's like, so we're going to put it on the car and like tow it? And I was like, no, we're going to push it. And so we pushed it through the boatyard, and like, people were holding oars. My brother and my stepdad are holding a picture of my dad. I had my mom's arm. And one of the reporters that was following this, he came up to me later and was like, I saw these workmen like stop and take their hats off. And then
beautiful.
Yeah. And we're rolling through the boatyard and it's, asphalt, and then it hits the gravel. And there was this moment where like, it like skidded, and then it started to like feel like it floated. And I couldn't tell. It felt like, are we pulling this boat, or is it like, is it pushing itself? We come in and there's all these guys in hard hats, and there's a big backhoe, and we pass it off to them. And one of the bits of science that we had, one of the samples was this piece of water from the Atlantic. And we just anointed her one last time, and she got torn apart.
Is this all documented?
Yeah, it's all documented.
Well, dude, when you watch this documentary, I want to help promote this and share. We could sit here and talk all day about it, and once you do launch it, I'd like to maybe sit down again and
yeah, I love that.
For everybody listening, this is the book, Rowing into the Sun. Where'd you say they can find it? And
they can find it. You can find it on Amazon or my website, jordanhanssen.com.
Okay.
And if you do audiobooks, it's on Audible and like 50 others.
Okay. And one last question I got for you. We got a little bit of time left. I always like to ask everybody, somebody that's experienced something like you have, if you were to give somebody some advice out in the water, like a safety message or what to do to help, either prevent it or how to react, and it could be quick, what kind of advice would you give them?
Prepare and keep preparing.
Yeah.
And stay humble with that.
Yeah.
I had a dramatic moment in my rowboat a few years ago, crossing this bit of water that I know pretty well. And, it got me, and it could have gotten me real bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of safety equipment, and I went back on shore and I got more.
Yeah. Dude. Hey, Jordan.
Yeah. Thank you so much
for coming out, dude. And like I said, once you launch that documentary, we'll promote the heck out of it. And everybody listen, check this book out. It's really, really good. So
yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it,
man.